What's up, my friends? It's your boy T, back at you again with the Stop Sinking Show, where we explore all the ways in which we need to heal our life, business, and relationships so we can grow what matters to us. We're here to go from struggle to flow. Today, on show number 5, I want to talk to you about keeping a positive mental attitude so you can be and create all that you imagine in your life, and how our tendency to be negative works against this great creator inside of us. So let's jump right into it. If we're being honest, if I can ask you to spend the next 20, 30 minutes to be really honest, starting with asking yourself, do you and do I have a negative or negativity bias? Am I drawn to the negative? And it's okay if you are. We are trained to look for things that are wrong. So I'm asking you to be honest because it's where we can start. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, it's not your fault. We are designed this way. We are all, if being honest with ourselves, drawn to the negative. We are trained to look for things that are wrong. We overlearn from negative experiences and underlearn from positive ones. The way that that's phrased, I learned today on my meditation, and it kind of inspired a lot of the conversation today about negativity bias, and for me, keeping a positive mental attitude. We overlearn from negative experiences and underlearn from positive ones. We are oriented to find what's wrong in the environment for safety. We are evolutionarily fault finders. So we are drawn to the negative because the negative tells us a lot about how to stay safe. Now, the problem is all of us are not happy with just being casual fault finders and casually having negative experiences that we can learn from. No. Many of us are so accustomed to these feelings and the safety that it provides from being able to find what's wrong that we are addicted to the negative. We are addicted to being able to point out the negative. We are addicted to being able to point out what's wrong. We're addicted to the feelings that come with all that negativity. We're addicted to the pain and the discomfort that accompanies all that negativity. A lot of us do it in a way to feel alive. A lot of us are replaying so many painful things, so many problems, just to give ourselves something to do, something to solve, in a way to balance the boredom and the lack of this anchored purpose that our life should have. We invite drama. We cause issues that aren't necessary because of this space, this extra idleness that should be taken up with purpose, that should be taken up with something that makes you sing. Instead, you're creating issues because your life is leaving room for it. And in a way to feel alive, you give life to the negativity. You keep it alive. You keep it alive. You give it life. You keep repeating these thoughts of anger, regret, resentment in your mind. You play it over and over again in every scenario, in every free moment that you get. You don't give yourself a moment off. You're constantly thinking about everything that went wrong in the past and everything that can go wrong in the future. Everything that can go wrong in your current project. You're constantly looking at everything and skewing it to protect you. But what protects you, the walls that you build to protect you, also keep out everything that you want for your life. So I would love to talk about why we should manage negativity. Why do I need a positive mental attitude? Why should I maintain positivity? And for anything that you are trying to accomplish in life, when you are venturing out into the unknown, into something new, it naturally causes red alerts to start flashing. Managing negativity and those red alerts that start flashing when you start venturing out into something new, those new things that often lead to success in life and business and everything else, your first challenge is to balance those negative thoughts in your mind. Your first challenge, your first assignment is how you manage your emotions in face of the unknown, in face of heightened emotions. People that cannot manage their emotions do not have levels of success that I'm sure you are trying to attain, that I'm trying to attain. One of those number one emotions is negativity. The doubt, the fear, the criticism from other people that also births all of that. People, the jails are filled with people who don't have the tools to manage their emotions. There's ultimately people that find themselves higher up in hierarchies are people who are more emotionally sound. And the first thing that they have to overcome usually is doubt, fear, and negativity. Keeping a positive mental attitude so that they can have all of the other resources available to them in their mind, all of their other facilities and skills and talents available to them in their mind. Because the first thing that they really, really made sure that they could manage is those doubts and those demons. They made sure that they did whatever they needed to do on a daily basis, as far as habits go, and as far as their character and principles go. They made sure they grounded themselves in something that gave them the runway for that greatness. And a lot of that starts with managing your negativity. And like I said, when you manage that negativity, you have more of you available to you. Your brain literally works better. And I don't have the statistics, the exact percentages, but your brain works better when it's happy, when it's positive, when it's in a pleasant state, when it's not stressed and filled with cortisol. Does your brain even fill with cortisol? Or maybe that's your body. Maybe it produces the cortisol. Maybe it's balancing the stress. I'm not a scientist. Point is, your brain works better when it's happy and positive. To create and problem solve and to do anything in life to progress, you have to have this space, this breathing room. It's very, very difficult to produce under pressure. Can you do it? Diamonds are made under pressure. One of my favorite rap lyrics is pressure either busts pipes or it makes diamonds. So yes, it depends on how you respond to it. But depending on your training, it can change. But more likely than not, your brain works better when it's happy, when it's positive, when it's at ease, when it doesn't have pressure, when it has the freedom to express, the freedom to think. Production and pressure don't go well together. It actually inhibits creation. It inhibits the feeling of rhythm. Imagine dancing and judging yourself while you're dancing because of the pressure that you feel of how other people are thinking of you, of what they're thinking of you. It inhibits, it's like literally different parts of you fighting each other. It's the part of you that wants to be able to move to the rhythm versus the part of you that cannot do it. These inhibitions are how these parts of your body it's how stuttering happens, for example, because it's somebody trying to express themselves and feeling way too much pressure and inhibition stopping them. It's overjudgment of themselves. Inhibition is never, ever the way to a great life. I mean, think about, or the life that you'll enjoy and sustain. So I'll call that great. Your definition can depend on you. And that greatness will still come through ease. Think about your current habits. They didn't take strain to build. All the things that you are doing currently, they're not necessarily the best for you. Right? I'm not saying that you have all the best habits that are contributing to all the things that you want. But think about those current habits. They were easy to pick up, right? They were easy to make a part of your life. We have this bias, this limiting belief for some reason that things are just difficult to attain, that money is just difficult to make, that success is difficult to have, that hustle requires you to be at attendance for 24/7 or else. But those are self-imposed limitations. Love doesn't look like this. The things that you want in life will come when you stop straining and ease into them. Accept them as a part of you as you already are. Accept them as a part of you as you already are. That doesn't take straining. That is easy to be who you already are. You just have to ease into it. Ask yourself to do things nicely. Don't be a bad boss. But we have these for reason beliefs that because of whatever we see and whatever we've read, that success has to be this difficult, strained road. And I'm not saying it's not going to take work, but it's going to not feel like work. Because you'll be managing your negativity. You'll have a beautiful, positive mental attitude. You'll sing while you work. And you will love every minute of it. But instead, you're straining. You're using your brain, your conscious brain, your forebrain, the part of your brain whose job it is to pose problems and to identify problems. But by its very, very nature, it's not actually engineered to solve those problems. So you're using that part of your brain, and for no surprise, you're thinking that straining is supposed to be natural because that part of your brain is really good at identifying those problems, and from that level of thinking, it cannot create. You cannot solve problems with conscious thought. Depending on conscious thought is why we are too careful, too anxious, and too fearful of results. We put so much pressure on everything. We cannot use the part of our brain that is meant to edit, that is meant to find the problems and use it to solve the problems. And it's no wonder the part of our brain that's looking for how to solve for success, that's trying to use that same part to create that success. And those are two different parts of you. You're supposed to identify problems. You're supposed to use that brain, that part of your brain, to let it do everything it's meant to do. But then there's this other part of your brain that you're supposed to promote. It's called diffused thinking, that you're supposed to promote. That helps you build connections that aren't already there, to solve problems that you can't already know how to solve. All you know how to do is identify that they are problems. You don't know how to solve them. The greatest creators share a phenomenon of finding their best ideas, their best solutions to problems through this spark of spontaneity, almost as if a solution appeared to them magically. Creativity happens after you have gathered all information. So yes, that forebrain, still important. Gathering all information, considering all courses of action, and needing that burning desire to solve that problem. But still, creativity happens after, with a different part of your brain. So after having defined the problem with your forebrain, your conscious thought, after having defined the problem and seeing that desired result in your mind and knowing where you want to take it, it does no good to add any additional struggling or fretting or negative thoughts. It only hinders the situation from actually getting accomplished. You must let go. Nearly all discoveries come as hunches during a period of relaxation, following periods of intensive thinking and fact gathering. There are countless stories of people who are sitting there thinking about their problem and how to solve it intensely, and then they drift away to sleep while thinking about that problem. Salvador Dali was known to do this, holding a ball and chain in his hand. And as he would drift off to sleep, staring at his creation, he would be awakened by the ball falling out of his hand and making a loud noise. And that part of his theta state, the diffused brain, would wake up to being able to solve the very thing that he had been consciously working on. But a different part of him was at that point active. The negative thinking, the conscious brain, the editing brain was silent. A different part created the solution. So your brain works better when it's detached from that negative part of your brain. It works better to do the job of solving problems. So we keep a positive mental attitude so we can stay on course to solve problems. We can use other parts of our brain to identify problems, but we keep a positive mental attitude and we ground ourselves in it because we always want to be solution oriented. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying negativity is all bad and negative awareness of problems are all bad. And I'll address a little bit of that later. All I'm saying is we need to stay solution oriented. And for that requires us a little bit of distance. And I'll love to go over some perspectives and angles that we can look at in how keeping a positive mental attitude helps us and how a negative mental attitude, a negative mindset, negativity infiltrating our brain can kind of throw us off from what we are trying to do. It can kind of deter and slow us down. Viktor Frankl talks about how the greatest strength given to mankind is the ability to choose our response, the space between stimulus and response. And that strength lies in the middle, where we can choose our own thoughts and our own response. So negative things may happen. Things around us may require or may stimulate us. And we feel like it's a requirement to respond negatively. But that stimulation doesn't define the response. You define it in that space in the middle. Most of us are subjective to negative suggestions every day. If our conscious mind is working and on the job, we do not have to accept them blindly. It ain't necessarily so is a good motto. It's one of my favorite excerpts from Psycho-Cybernetics. And just adds on to Frankel's point that regardless of what suggestions and the stimuli in our environment, if our conscious mind and our great creator is on the job, we don't have to accept any of those stimuli. Stimuli, I think that's already plural. Any of that stimuli as anything other than what we decide willingly to respond to it as. The stimuli in itself doesn't come loaded with anything. We don't have to accept them as anything. We choose our response. That means you're not your thoughts that come up when that stimuli also shows its face and triggers you. You are not your thoughts in general. And if you don't maintain enough of a distance from your thoughts, if you don't have a time to recognize you yourself as the thing that is ever present through the turbulence, those that your thoughts try to take you through, if you don't have some way of grounding yourself, then you may not know that you are not your thoughts. And I just want to add that extra perspective and angle here when we are dealing with negative thoughts, is that you are not them. And if you maintain a distance from them enough, you will recognize that you are the ever-present thing while those thoughts come and go. You are the watcher, the observer, the one that is untouched by your personhood, the one that is untouched by all of your assumed biases and untouched. You are what remains. So you are not your thoughts. And some of those thoughts are negative. Some of those thoughts are full of worry. And what's the point of worry anyway? And doesn't it go against faith? Doesn't worry and negative thoughts that arise in a way to protect you, in a way to keep you safe, in a way to anticipate what could go wrong in the future, isn't that contradictory to faith? How can you pray and worry? How's God supposed to feel? Hey, God, hey, I prayed to you and I know you got this, but I'm still going to keep it and hold on to it. And I'm going to hold on to this weight just in case you don't got it. Just in case you don't, I'm going to hold on to this weight and continue to worry. How's he supposed to feel? How strong is your faith? Okay, so I've beat up on negativity enough. We need to keep a positive mental attitude. I think we're all in agreement and we all want to remain more positive because of the positive effects of it. So how can we soften negativity in our life? How can we first use negative thoughts? Let's start with reframing the purpose of those negative thoughts. Let's not just shun them and judge them as undesirable, these negative thoughts. Let's look at them differently and allow ourselves to use them for something productive, because they're probably not going to go away because I made this one podcast. So let's give negative thoughts the understanding and the recognition that they deserve, and probably their ever-present nature, and probably our ever-present effort to curb their presence. And let's just give them the due that they deserve and not just judge them. Let's use them for what they are here for. Let's try to offer a little bit of understanding at first in softening negativity and trying to maintain a positive attitude. For the long term, it requires you to take negativity and integrate it into everything else about you. So that starts with reframing it. And negative feedback isn't always a bad thing. Negative feedback is meant to course correct your aim. If you were a self-directing missile headed towards a specific aim, you don't just get shot out directly towards the exact mark. You go out in a general direction, and your servo mechanism constantly tells you a little left, little right, little left, little right, and you course correct. So you're supposed to use negative thoughts and negative things as feedback and data to identify the signals of just going off and then to adjust course. So having given negative feedback its just due, I would say that there's probably no further purpose of negative feedback once course has been corrected. Meaning there is no purpose of negative memories other than just to extrapolate the lesson that is required to protect us from it happening again. So as long as we are only revisiting the memory for it to give us the extrapolated lesson from which we can course correct, there is no other reason to revisit that negative thought or negative memory. Now, I'll share a little NLP technique that I learned that I try to practice when I have a constantly recurring thought that dumps me with negative emotion, and I realize that it's unprocessed. I realize that it's a negative thought that it's asking for attention, and it's probably not processed enough where my body believes that I have the lesson is ingrained enough to protect me in the future. So this NLP technique asks you to imagine the past and this story that keeps coming up, this negative experience that keeps coming up, and think about it almost like on a TV screen. And just look at this TV screen like an old school TV screen. And you play the story, play the happening on this TV screen. And from that happening, let it play out and give you all the emotions that it gives you, because you're playing them every day anyway. So let's do it for a purpose this time. And close your eyes and go through this TV screen where you play everything that this constant loop, this reel that plays, that dumps you with emotions that you love to revisit because it makes you feel alive and you just haven't done the job to extrapolate the lesson from. So let's replay it. And as we replay it and we see it clearly, let's start messing with the picture. Let's take the picture and maybe mess with the contrast and the brightness and maybe make it really, really unseeable and more noise and ugly, and then bring it back to clarity. And in your mind's eye, take this image, this picture, and write over it. Write over it with a marker. Some dissolution, some dissolved version, some lesson, something that you can extrapolate, something that it's telling you about your emotions, and write over it with a marker and say, this lesson meant that I will never be hurt again like this. Or this lesson, I was seeking too much and putting too much hope on other people, and this taught me not to do that. And now every time that it comes up again, and every time your need for pain and need to feel alive brings back this memory again, over time, your psyche will revisit it less and less, because the hope is that it understands that you have done the processing. And when it brings it back up again in your mind's eye, it only sees the TV screen with the noise and the bold markers on top of it with the extrapolated lesson. And every time you think about this memory, all you think, and when you revisit it, all you see is the bold letters with the lesson. And then your body believes, okay, I'm protected. I'm protected against this. She won't let me get hurt again with this. I'm good to go. And then you can worry about the next thing because you're probably a bit obsessed about something else. But the point is, you should do this with everything that you are dwelling over, because additional dwelling is counterproductive and is not solving anything. Now, I can't finish talking about managing any type of emotions, especially some of the primal one that everybody has to deal with before they go through and go to anything. I can't talk about any of those emotions without actually talking about emotional intelligence in general. And the facets of emotional intelligence, which we all know are, and in my version, and everybody probably has different verbiage for this, the way that I remember it, is self-awareness, self-regulation, people awareness, and people regulation. In the self-awareness part that we were kind of just talking about and being aware of your emotions, just self-awareness in managing negativity and just having increased sensitivity when negativity shows its face. It's important for us to remember to train our mind to recognize negative thoughts. And self-awareness in a space that we give ourselves, meditation, writing every day, all different types of techniques, tactical stuff, ultimately help us build self-awareness just to notice and become aware of when thoughts arise and when some of them are skewing negative, and taking our energy and taking our strength versus giving it to us. And just noticing them and becoming aware at first, and without judgment and without pushing them away. Just being able to label them and saying, hey, judgment. Hey, anger. Hey, hatred. They're just want to be seen. They're just calling for your attention to be seen. And more often than not, just when they are seen and labeled, they fade away by themselves without judgment, without pushing them away. They fade away. But I will say it's not enough It's not enough just to recognize and be aware, but we also have to practice turning those negative thoughts into positive thoughts by using the trigger of the negative thought as a practice that triggers you to have and put in the energy to have a positive thought. Meaning, if you have a negative thought, you're never probably ever going to eliminate negative thoughts. I mean, I would love to be able to have some solution, and maybe through all the interviews that we do, there's some genius out there that has figured out something. Where maybe with Elon's Neuralink, we'll figure out how to eliminate negative thoughts. But currently, the only thing that you can do is diminish their power and their hold over you. And if you just use the negative thought when you recognize it and become self-aware because of your increased sensitivity, when you just use the negative thought as a way to trigger the positive thought, then what will happen is that over time, the power and the breath, the hold of those negative thoughts will just diminish. Negative thoughts will probably never go away, but because negative thoughts constantly trigger you and your practice of you following it up with a positive thought, meaning you think badly about your ex-partner or your wife or your coworker, you think about them when you get home and you say something negative and you constantly play it in your head. If you use that as a trigger to then think about, and at first it will take you some time to think about the one or two things that are really, really grounded about them, that are undeniably good about them, that you can't, no matter what emotional state you're in, you can't deny that that is actually a good thing and a positive thing about that person or that thing. When you recognize that at first and you use that and to call on it every time you have a negative thought, your negative thoughts will diminish. So that's self-regulation as part of emotional intelligence. You're using the awareness once you become aware of the negative thought to trigger the regulation of that negative thought. And I'll just add a beautiful quote about self-regulation that is about building a quiet room in your mind. And self-regulation and negative thoughts and keeping a positive mindset is required in all pursuits, in all levels of greatness. And one of the greatest Stoics and warriors of all time, Marcus Aurelius, had this beautiful quote where he says, "Men seek retreats for themselves in building a quiet mind in your mind." He says, quiet room in your mind. He says, men seek retreats for themselves. Houses in the country, seashores and mountains. And thou too art wont to desire such things very much. You also desire these same things very much. But this is altogether a mark of the most common sort of men. We seek retreats for ourselves, houses in the country, seashores and mountains, and vacations. And you desire such things very much. But this is altogether a mark of the most common sort of men. For it is in thy power, whenever thou shalt choose to retire into thyself. It is in thy power, whenever thou shalt choose to retire into thyself. It is in your power to vacate and be at vacation and retire into yourself. For nowhere, either with more quiet or more freedom from trouble does a man retire than into his own soul, particularly when he has within him such thoughts that by looking into them he is immediately in perfect tranquility. And I affirm that tranquility is nothing else than the good ordering of the mind. Constantly then give thyself this retreat and renew thyself. You have a store of peace in your mind. And you don't need vacations, and you don't need anything outside of yourself. And everything that you desire and everything that you want, you have the ability to create with a positive mental attitude by using negativity for only its purpose and shedding it, and then retreating to the peace in your mind so that you can access creativity and you can find solutions with other parts of your brain. Guys, I hope that we will work together through difficulty, through tragedy, through malice, to always keep a positive mental attitude, to always stay positive, to use the negative as a tool, and to hold each other accountable when we are dwelling, when we are wasteful, and we are not using all that is available to us to pursue and add to our goals. We will never rid ourselves of these human tendencies. The goal is that we just add understanding and figure out what they're trying to do for us and let them do that and nothing more. I love you guys. My hope is that you are always positive and that positivity shows up in every aspect of your life so that you can breathe life into everything that you dream of. I love you guys. As always, I will see you in the next one. Please share this with at least one person if you got something out of it. Love you guys so much.